It's 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first we have our first public comment portion of the agenda. And if you have a public comment you'd like to make, come on up to the podium. Rod's turning on the microphone. And you have 3 minutes.
Dave Reinhardt from Sylvan Township. This should be fairly quick. I just wanted to offer support for the Dark Skies kickoff initiative, whatever that may be. And I would hope the board just quickly approves the zoning text amendment that the Planning Commission approved. It's just a common sense thing that was intended, I think, for the original text. And even more importantly, the 4.4 mils, whatever it takes tonight to get that off our taxes. And lastly, thanks, Amanda, for the way you ran the election and all the election workers who've worked hard. You got my wife home by 9 o'clock. So thank you.
Right. Thank you. Other public comment tonight? Yes. Mr. Galvin, would you like to go first? Patrick will get you next. He had a little quicker hand back there.
I'm Gary Galvin. I'm here with my wife, Doris. We live on Sibley Road. I work at the high school, student support for the past 11 years, and Doris owns and operates her own business in downtown Chelsea. We purchased our property on Sibley Road in 94, and we moved into the home we built in 97. We moved from south of Jackson and wanted to live near the city and the schools because our children were young. We found the perfect location, 3/4 of a mile from the city limits, 1.5 miles from downtown, and 2 miles from school. We have 25 acres where we pastured and rode our horses. Although we're down to only 2 horses now, we'd like to put the property to better use. Our children have found their own homes, and so we were considering options, including dividing into approximately 5-acre lots that would require a shared driveway. Our property has 2 or 3 dog legs to the back of the road, with the road frontage being the narrowest. Developing our property that abuts the wetlands and is very near to the city and all its amenities would add value to the community. Our property is hilly and near the wetlands, so not really conducive to acreage farming. We've started to investigate the potential and would like to develop it in a way that's good for the communities, the families who would choose to live here, and for us. We are proponents of including shared driveways as part of the zoning for Sylvan Township. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick.
I'm going to be brief too, just a few things. I just want to express support again for discontinuing the 4.4. I probably didn't have to say that. And support for the zoning text amendment. As you probably know, it passed through the Planning Commission unanimously. And they looked at it in quite some detail. After this 4.4 is done, it's a good time to reassess the finances of the township in general. That may fall to the incoming board, or you may be able to start it during your terms. There have been a lot of suggestions about certain needs that the township has. For example, a capital improvement fund, and maybe it's time to think about that, at least partially funding something like that. It may also be time to reassess other things, such as the purchase of development rights and how that fits in now that the tax millage is gone. And basically reassess water rates and the whole thing. But that's not for tonight. So I'm in favor of the dark skies too. So thank you. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but the idea sounds good. Thank you.
right, this is the first public comment portion of the meeting. If anybody else has any public comment they want to make at this time? No? Okay. All right, thank you. Seeing none, we will move on to the business portion of the agenda. First, we have the consent agenda, which includes minutes. I believe July 11th is on there in error. Should not have been on there. Was no meeting that date. So includes the minutes, presentation of bills, correspondence, committee, board, and department reports if provided. So I look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I will
There's,
support.
thank you, Amanda. All right, motion from Rod, support by Amanda. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we have approval of the agenda. I would like to propose we add an item to authorize the attorney to seek legal action against Joe Trupiano. And if we could add that under the zoning text amendment, I would appreciate that. And another modification I would like to make is suggest that we move the dark skies. Oh, I'm sorry. Move the dark skies up to perhaps number 3 on the agenda. Zoning text amendment would be 1, Trupiano would be 2, dark skies 3, and then on down as they're listed. That'll allow Mr. Pacheco to leave a little early, get the ones that he needs to address bunched together at the top. Anybody have any other modifications to the agenda, additions, deletions?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda as amended.
I'll second.
All right, great. Motion from Amanda, support by Rod. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. So the first item is the zoning text amendment. Get to that portion in my packet, or Mr. Pacheco, if you wanna,
Yeah, if you want me to present.
if you could present that or speak to that, that'd be great. I think we're all probably up to speed on it, but
Yeah, I'm sure you've all read my memo that was attached to all of the, it's attached, the Exhibit A is the actual ordinance language, and then Exhibit B is the Planning Commission report, minutes and attachments, and then the last exhibit on there is the notice of adoption that would have to go in paper if this this zoning text amendment is approved. But basically what the zoning text amendment does is it was originally on June 4th, the township board directed staff to draft a zoning text amendment to bring to the planning commission that would allow our zoning ordinance to be compatible with the development standards for shared driveways and exclusive access easements that was approved by the township board in 2019. So in order to do that, the main section of the township ordinance that was revised do that was access to public streets, section 3792. Basically change that wording to add or access to exclusive easement driveways or private shared driveways with reference to the section of development standards in there. So prior to that, it only allowed buildings and structures to be established on lots that adjoined public streets. So now it would allow them as long as they have access through an exclusive access driveway or private shared driveway. So along with that amendment, when I was revising the ordinance, there were some changes that needed to be made to the definitions section. The definition, there was no definition of lot width. It just directed you to how to measure lot width. So I added a definition to lot width, and then where it directed you to the measurement of lot width, there was no, because of the way it was worded, it was very confusing. So we went through and updated that wording to make it easier to measure the lot width. And then had to add a section if you didn't have street frontage, because you were on an exclusive easement or a private shared driveway accessed. So to allow you to still measure lot width. The other thing that changed during this was the definition of rear yard, side yard, and front yard, because of the addition of the shared driveways. Some of the wording had to be clarified. So those were all the changes, and you can see those. They're easiest to find in Exhibit A of the Planning Commission staff report, because it's a redlined copy. But it's also all in the zoning ordinance itself, that's attached as Exhibit A to your memo, the draft ordinance. Or you could read the notice of adoption that is a summary notice of adoption that summarizes what those changes are. But at the Planning Commission meeting, like Patrick said, it was approved unanimously of the members that attended. I believe 2 of the members were not in attendance that night. Let me see. I wrote that down somewhere, I'm pretty sure, in your memo. Yeah, Leah Herrick and Courtney Heller were absent from that meeting. So it was approved on a 5-0 vote. And also at that meeting, 3 citizens did come out to speak, all in favor. 2 of them were here tonight. The third one is on the is watching. So we had 3 citizens that came all in favor of the proposal. And as you remember, at the June 4th, 2024 Township Board meeting, you did have a confidential lawyer attorney-client privileged document that went along with this also.
Thank you for that reminder. We did have that last time, and I believe Mr. Paul provided that also to the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Before, so they had that also. Anybody have, Well-
This feels more like a formality to me. I mean, if we already passed the shared driveway and we just need to change the verbiage of the ordinance to comply.
Mhm.
I think this board is already, when we voted on it in 2019, this was our intent. And I have found some hiccups in the process, and they have been, to my satisfaction anyway, ironed out through Planning Commission with Scott's guidance. So I'm happy to make a motion on this. Let me do that, and then we can get to discussion if we need it. Long motion.
It's a long one, yeah.
Two typed
Yeah,
down
we'll
there,
read
but
it.
I
Yep.
make motion to approve the proposed zoning text amendment, ZTA 2404, to amend the zoning regulations, chapter 30 zoning, requiring buildings or structures to be on a lot or parcel that adjoins public roadways by also allowing them to be on parcels accessed by an exclusive access driveway, section 10484, or a shared private driveway, section 10485. This amendment also includes revisions to the definitions and measurements of lot and width and yards. The motion is based on discussion held at tonight's meeting and the July 18th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, as well as the information presented in the Planning Commission staff report. The Township Board approves the zoning text amendment because, as discussed and presented, the zoning amendments comply with the master plan and will preserve the health, safety, and welfare of the community by allowing appropriate development of existing sites within the community. The proposed amendments are intended to allow appropriate development of existing parcels, providing all other zoning regulations are met.
I'll second.
Now we're at a discussion point. Does anybody have any discussion on this or questions? Scott?
I've got a couple things. When we look at planning commission meeting notes, they should be approved before we take action on them. Just as sort of like a point of order. And then the second thing is on this board agenda item, under discussion of listed actions, it says if the zoning map amendment is approved, we're not doing a zoning map amendment, are we?
The zoning text.
Zoning text. Okay,
Okay.
right
Right.
here.
Okay, got it.
That's all I have.
Andy, any questions or discussion?
So when I guess it was 2019 when our current attorney started at the township.
I have to look back and see. I don't recall.
So I had come to a township meeting because he was going to be doing a presentation of things in our ordinances that needed to be looked at. And that was one of them. He said, you're just, you know, they're at juxtaposition, they don't complement each other, and you're just gonna get sued if you don't fix it. And it's taken how long to get this to happen? Government does not move fast by any stretch of the imagination. I'm glad to see this
Me too. All right, any other discussion or questions? We have a motion, by me, and we had support for that. Is there any?
Yes, yeah, motion by Kathy, supported by Rod.
All right, and, since it's a zoning text amendment, should we do a roll call vote?
Rod,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Sandy,
here. Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Amanda, yes.
Yeah. Motion carried. Thank you. Yes, Scott.
I don't know if it's appropriate at this time, but the reason that you usually get the draft minutes from the PC is because the meeting date times. It would add an additional 30 days to any zoning text amendment if you decided to require them to approve their minutes prior to you hearing their requirements. So the state law requires you have the draft minutes done within 7 days of the hearing. So that's why you get the draft minutes at board meetings. And it's just, again, another way to make the process more expedient. And they usually don't change too much. I don't know if you guys have the recordings up on the website. You can always watch the recordings also. Discrepancy in the draft minutes.
No, my point is that we should be consistent. If we're gonna reject things because we don't have approved minutes, then we should always be consistent and always
Yeah.
operate that way. That's my only point. Because in the past, we have rejected things because the notes weren't official. They weren't adopted. That's my point. But we can go continue to vote even though they're not approved.
Thank you. All right, so that is taken care of. Thank you. Next is something that I've added. Provided the board with some letters. On top is a letter that I sent to. I'm sorry, let me back up. The agenda item is the attorney would like to have authorization from the board to take legal action against developer Joe Trupiano of the Hillcrest condo development. So I have for the board, we'll put them into the board pack and put them online. But on top is a letter from me, dated July 13th, 2022, outlining items that Mr. Trupiano needs to take care of. He has left some items in disrepair over there and also owes Sylvan Township for tap fees. Then underneath that is a letter from our attorney that gave Mr. Trupiano through the end of June to respond to his letter, and if not, letting him know that he was going to be pursuing legal action. And Rod hasn't heard anything. I know Bob Skull was the other person who would maybe have heard anything. He hasn't heard from Mr. Trupiano. None of us have. So Mr. Trupiano has put down a performance bond that Mr. Paul, our attorney, will take legal action on. But Mr. Trupiano also owes for tap fees that are not covered under that bond. So he would like to pursue him in a lawsuit and also pursue the insurance at the same time. So he would just need the board to authorize him to do that. The final list on here is from Midwest Engineering. They have looked at the items that need to be repaired. Some of them are including driveways weren't poured correctly. The water is seeping into people where they park in the garage from the drive. And it's been a couple winters now and it's pretty dangerous when it gets icy. So everyone would like to have these items taken care of quickly. The total amount is $79,200.
I'm sorry, say that again, 20?
What was, it's on the
Yeah.
last page here. Yeah. So $79,200. This is Midwest Consulting's
Right.
to, estimate the repairs that need to be done.
Mhm.
My letter and Paul's letter also outline, I think he owes us $130,000 in tap fees.
Right.
So we're at the point, he's not responding, and we need to make this needs to be made right. For the residents, so we can pursue that, and then also we'll have to, follow up on all of the items that he owes financially. So I would like to propose a motion that the board authorize Attorney Robert Fall to pursue legal action against developer Joe Trupiano regarding the Hillcrest development for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents.
I'll second that. It's like that. He's had numerous opportunities to pay this. More than one letter from Thal and letters from us, and he's ignored
You've never had a response?
nothing. He even has, Trupiano has my phone number and it has had it. Nothing.
Oh, yeah, the other person on Mr. Thal's letter was Scott, and Scott hasn't heard anything from Mr. Trupiano either, just to add another person. So his letter here, failure to do so by June 28th, 2024 deadline will result in legal action for collection. So he's threatened it. I think he's just looking for authorization from the board now to go ahead and pursue that.
Mhm. Okay.
All right. So there was a motion for me, supported by Ron. Any other
Yes.
discussion? Yes.
So we think that the performance bond will pay for these things, because I know the performance bond specifically lists what it is that they're bonding. So we think that all these things on this one document are going to be addressed.
Yeah, as far as I know, they should be addressed.
Paul.
Yeah.
Paul says, yeah.
Paul said he's looked at
He's
this
reviewed
list.
it.
He's
Okay.
reviewed this list.
Do-
This list went with his letter, I believe. And maybe it references it, but yeah, he's looked at this and he said, it's possible if Mr. Trupiano goes to his attorney, I mean, $79,000, that's a lot of money, but also who knows what he would pay in legal fees if he tries to, fight or something on this. These are things that, that he would need to be.
Okay, do we have any estimate of cost? What our legal fees will be on this?
I don't have an estimate of cost right now.
Okay.
He did say that he would
So-
go after the legal fees also, though. He said whether they're awarded or not is up to the judge.
Okay. And then how do we contact him, Mr. Trupiano? Is it via registered mail, or how do we know that he's getting these letters? He could just say, I never saw the letter.
He could say he never saw the letter.
So-
We sent them, we sent the JJ Devet, the one I sent, we sent registered mail.
Right,
Like a registered return receipt. He could still say he didn't see it, but someone
So-
had signed for it.
Did we receive it?
I
Or
believe we
receipt?
received it back. We have to double check, but yeah.
So we want to make sure that and maybe Rob Thal can help us with that.
I think Scott was.
Right.
I would just add that anything that's not covered by the escrow, would be in the lawsuit that will be coming against Mr. Trippian, because the project was never completed, and never final. So, our engineers have gone out there now, and these are the items that are not in compliance with the actual approval.
With the site plan and what he done, yeah.
And Rob also said he would go both ways. He would contact the,
But you're using the word escrow. And I'm
Whatever you
talking,
guys call it.
You mean trust and
Performance
agency?
bond.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
performance bond.
Yeah.
well, there is two different things, performance bond versus trust and agency.
There's no.
and he was in arrears on that.
And there's no money in trust and agency. So this,
Project's kind of done.
Right.
I think Scott's referring to performance bond, but I think different places call it different things and you work in like
Oh,
four different
yeah.
townships. And
What I'm talking about is he had never got his final inspections for the Hillcrest project and got the approval from the township that the project was final.
well, that's a whole different list of concerns there. So moving on, let's make sure that we know he's getting these letters, so he can't say, I never received it. And then tap fees, we should not install any meters unless tap fees are paid for in advance. So I hope that our processes
Yeah.
would reflect that today, and
Does.
then we wouldn't be in this situation.
Right.
And then this document here has no date, has no title, is this an attachment to the letter? Is this?
I printed this from, Scott had collected this information from Midwest, so when we.
Okay,
got
that's
together-
fine.
Yeah, it should be an attachment.
Just the recommendation is if we're attaching this to the letter, then we should reference it, see attachment A with it,
Closure,
right. He has the dollar amount in here,
yeah.
but really Trupiana should get this specific list of items. That's all I have.
All right, well, then we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion? In my motion, to authorize the attorney to seek legal action. All in favor, say aye.
I-
Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. The Hillcrest residents will be very happy to hear about that. It's been a long time. And then we moved up the item to discuss, the dark skies ordinance. Which, so I think, the dark skies, ordinance had come around for people who have been coming for a while. We had the University of Michigan offer some assistance and some residents came out, and spoke to it. And I think, this ordinance would be something that the township would pay for. It's not an ordinance that's brought forward by someone where they would be paying for that, meaning planning commission time. The person's time who's writing the ordinance, it would be something that would be, the township would bear. So, ideally, every year or so, the township would be having a joint meeting and talking about what are our priorities. I think we had one in 2021 when we were all virtual, when I took over from Mr. Brooks. And we itemized that we wanted to talk about solar ordinances, the administrative review ordinance, and then the lake, the lake district modifying that so people didn't have to come all the time. So those were things that the board prioritized and funded. Every year we budget some money to fix ordinances. So I believe this year we budgeted 10,000. I don't know how much of that money's been spent. I should get with Amanda. I think Rebecca Harvey had some invoices that came in.
That was last fiscal year.
Would it be? Cause I felt like she sent one not long ago. Well, at any rate, we'd have to see what we have left. And then I guess the idea being, does the board, we have a lot of ordinances that need attention. Is the dark sky one that the board would want to use any funding available on? Is it our priority? So that's my understanding of it. Sandy, Scott's, if you have things you want to chime in on, certainly do. Sandy.
So,
Okay.
I think it was last year when the folks came and talked to us about the dark sky ordinance. And at that time, they said, so we already have an ordinance about lighting. And that they would take that ordinance to the University of Michigan. Somebody there would make changes to it to reflect the dark sky. It is my understanding that that's been done. And so is that what you're talking about, is paying somebody to do that?
Well, I think it would have to be, it certainly would be something that the township would, it's gonna cost money.
Yeah.
And again, it's not something that people are bringing forward, so I think. Scott, go ahead.
So I've not seen their entire, what they have proposed, but more than likely, it would need to be looked at by a professional, who is me. So, because I would want to make sure that what doesn't happen is what happened on the last few ordinances that I've had to go through. So since the beginning of this year, or since I started here, we have made, we have finished the administrative review ordinance, the changes to the LR and mechanical regulations, and then this third ordinance. Prior to 2000, to me starting here, I think you did 3 ordinances in 10 years. So I would, and we haven't even got to the solar stuff yet. The solar stuff is going to come up on November 24th, 2024, because that's when the new state law goes into effect for alternative energy regulations. So we're going to have to figure out what we want to do there. I think some of us are going to be going to a webinar tomorrow from 3 to 4:30 that will discuss what our options are looking at in that regulation. I know right now that you have a sign ordinance that doesn't meet the Reed versus Town of Gilbert Supreme Court case law to create a content neutral sign regulation. So that should probably be looked at also, just to make sure that we've got current regulations in place. I like dark skies ordinances. I think it would be something nice to create. Now, we do have a lot of regulations in place that regulate lights currently. So like any commercial structure that comes in, we can regulate the lights on through our site plan review standards, which standard 7 is outside lighting will not adversely affect adjacent or neighboring properties, traffic on adjacent street. If it's a special use permit, you can regulate it through the proposed SUP is compatible with the natural environment and existing and future land uses in the vicinity, which is number 2, and number 5. The special use permit will not be detrimental or hazardous to the future neighboring uses, persons, or property or public welfare. So you can regulate all of the lights on anything that requires site plan review or special use permits through those discretionary standards, which we did on the tow yard. When they came in, they actually had proposed lighting that was directed to the ground, which a lot of lighting now, you're going to see people are just going to propose it because it's the kind of lights that are acceptable most places. So they just, the large engineering firms just put those lights on. But we did also mandate that those lights be turned off at a certain time of night, which they didn't have on the original proposal, which was a condition of project approval to meet those standards, because otherwise they would want to leave their lights on all night. So I have a canned standard that I usually put for almost all commercial, that between whenever you close the business, your lights have to be turned off. So you're not on all night. And if they're used for security purposes, they should be on a motion sensor, that type of thing. So, and again, it's mostly for these rural, a rural community would want to have something like that. Obviously, if you were in the middle of the city, everybody's lights are on, the street lights are on all night and those types of things. We also have regulations though that I've seen that are in place where street lighting is required in certain areas, which I don't know if you actually want to have that, because do we really need street lighting? Don't know. But we have a regulation that requires street lighting in our subdivisions. So we could always look at that ordinance too. And there are other regulations. There's regulations on sign lighting that they have to be reflected away from adjoining premises and streets. There's a lot of regulation in place currently, and I'd want to make sure that whatever is going to go into place with the dark skies ordinance, it's compatible with what's already in place in our ordinance. So nothing against students or people putting together ordinances, but I definitely want to be able to review them. I will tell you there's costs involved with every ordinance. The last ordinance that we just did, I just ran some quick numbers on. With my time, Rob Thal reviewing it going to one planning commission meeting cost the township about $3,500 in total. And that was a super simple ordinance. I would say they're between 3,000 and 5,000 for simple ordinances, 4,000 to 10,000 for a larger ordinance that is going to take a lot more changes to the regulations. So I agree that we should probably have a joint meeting, but we're in this holding period because we have a November election coming up. So if we want to just get a dark skies ordinance through, you could always tell me to do one and I will do one. Because I mean, I agree with dark skies regulations. I think we should have regulations to make the biggest thing that I've just looked at through this is residential lighting. You do have a regulation for glare on residential properties, but it could be beefed up so that on residential properties, lights have to be directed, shielded and directed towards the ground. No light can reflect onto your neighboring properties. It doesn't mean you're going to have no lights on residential properties. People that live on the lakes are still going to see their neighbor's light across the lake. That's not what reflecting light onto a neighboring property is. It's looking at lumens and actually how it affects the ground. Just because I can see a light a mile away doesn't mean that it doesn't meet the required ordinance requirements. So, but there are some dark skies areas that have very strict regulations for any lighting. And I doubt that's probably what you guys want here. And I don't think that's what U of M had suggested to do either. But I think there's some places in the Upper Peninsula that have a basically no light requirements. So, and they actually meet the federal standards for dark skies preserved areas.
So two things. One, I feel bad that we missed getting what the faculty and students had written. I mean, they volunteered to do this, but we've not responded to them.
Oh.
That's my concern. And the other is, how do you know that where the exit on 94 is, that right down here, that business that's on the other side, do they leave their lights on all night? Because I don't usually come down this road after business hours, and except coming here in the winter.
Yeah.
'Cause it seems like their giant lights are on all the time.
So the problem is zoning ordinances aren't retroactive. So you can't
know that.
go back
I
and make
understand that.
people take out their lighting. But yeah, their lights, I mean, like I said, if I was here when that went in, that wouldn't be the way the lights looked.
But if we have an ordinance, we can let them know that this is something that they should think about in the future, which is changing their lighting system because it's pretty bright.
If they come in for a revision to their site plan, we could always make them comply with any of the requirements because they have to meet the standards. So as an example, the North Lake store recently came into, or is it the North Lake store? I don't even know what it's called. Or not North Lake store, Kavanaugh Lake store, came in to do an amendment to their parking area. They wanted to put up some bollards to protect. They have some concerns there with their safety for their parking lot area. So because they want to add these bollards in, to go through the administrative review, we asked for upgrades to that parking area. One, they don't have any parking lines drawn on the parking spaces. They have open access to the entire space from the road. So they have some concerns there. So we could ask them to amend those concerns to be able to amend their site plan approval. And we can do that when these businesses come in again for site revisions to their existing site plan. So we definitely would do that to these guys. I don't know. I don't remember those lights being so obtrusive when I was here in 2013. So I don't know. Last time I drove by that place, it was pretty like Fort Knoxy.
Well, they run vehicles 24 hours a day for 7 days straight. So they're not gonna run their vehicles in the dark.
At this place right here.
VTS. Yeah, they have the garage doors open and they're running cars 24 hours a day. They fuel them on the run while they're on the dynamometer. They never shut the car off.
But that doesn't have anything to do with their parking lot lights. That's what I'm talking.
Well, Scott, I'm hearing that we look like we budgeted $10,000 this fiscal year and looks like $3,000 up to $10,000 we're going to spend on an ordinance. We've just done the administration.
Yeah, and again, I don't know how you guys.
Well, I'm just
Pay
looking at costs. I'm
fees.
looking at where you just brought up that we're out of compliance with our sign ordinance. We're looking at the solar ordinance that we definitely need to address. I mean, I feel like we're chipping away at the budgeted amount that we have already approved. And, we're not going to be looking at a new budget until next April. So I agree with this completely. I totally support the dark skies. I'm just looking at some of the other priorities that you're outlining and questioning whether this is something we should be addressing at this time. Just because we're out of compliance with one, and then the solar ordinance, we definitely have been talking about for a long time as well. That's very important.
Yeah. And I would
Solar,
say
wind,
real
and
quick,
battery
We
storage.
were responding with the University of Michigan, and we had a personnel change.
Yes,
And
that's
it's a
exactly
key
what
person, and so there was a lot of things that were flowing through this office. Now we got a new person in, he's getting up to speed, we got a lot going on, with this, with developments, with people coming in for sheds and fences and all of the things that flow through here. So I think, that's not for nothing. There's going to be a blip there, but we have been communicating. I'd be happy to resurface my communications with U of M. I don't want to give everyone the impression we ghosted them or we're not responding with them. I mean, at some point it fell apart apparently. But I can't carry all of those threads, through on
I
our personnel
understand
change,
that.
but yeah.
I understand that. I just don't want it to get lost again.
Right, I understand. And then I also want to say, the reason why we haven't done any ordinances is I don't think we've ever had a joint meeting before we did that one in 2021. I've been on the board for 10 years. Rod, Kurt, you guys have been on longer than us. We're not in the habit of doing that, but I think it's smart because otherwise we get to a spot where our ordinances are all full and need a lot of attention. So if we can do a few every year, I think it helps us stay current. So I'm supportive of that. I kind of hear what Amanda's saying. I feel like we have other ordinances, that may take priority. Also, this board is going to change in a few months, so.
Wouldn't the
Let's do
muni
that.
code have a template for it? It seems like there's so many townships that already have an ordinance. Just grab one and it shouldn't cost that much to.
Yeah, do you see this as being a simple process or not?
Yeah, real simple. Just let's use somebody else's ordinance and throw it in and then see how many things it actually doesn't comply with that are already in your ordinance.
It makes sense. You're going to have to see what applies.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, is it an easy process? It's not a difficult process. Is it a timely process? It takes a lot of time to process an ordinance.
I mean, is it a $500 review of an existing ordinance or a $5,000 review?
It's gonna be probably $3,000 to $5,000 to get an ordinance in place that actually works. On every ordinance that you do. I think when you hired Rebecca to
Mhm.
do those 3 ordinances, it was $15,000. So that was $5,000 or something in ordinance.
I was thinking it was ballpark, 3 to 4,
3 to
per-
4.
Yeah, a couple of them were easier and they were
Yep.
more like 3.
So,
So moving this.
but she also wasn't adding in the cost of the planning commission or the township attorney or for any
No,
of the review.
Correct. No, that was just
So,
her time.
Right, that was just her time.
Right.
But again, you budget it. I mean, I have a list of 18 things that have came up since I've started that we can look at, you know, I mean, I do joint meetings for all of my municipalities that I've ever worked for. You just have them once a year. You talk about, you know, the ZBA, the planning commission and the township board come together. They talk about what they are seeing. Usually a lot of ordinance changes come from the ZBA because it's like, how many variances did you have to approve for this thing this year? You should probably change your ordinance. Or they come through me because I'm reading your ordinance and there's some kind of confusion in your language that doesn't make sense when you're trying to issue a zoning permit. Or it's hot topics from, you know, every MTA has the hot topics regulations. You know, everybody knows marijuana, short-term rentals, solar, wind and battery. Those are the big hot topics this year that they're going to talk about tomorrow, which is unfortunate because it's the same, it's right after our MAP class on solar. So on solar, wind and battery storage. I don't like it. We should start calling it alternative energies because it's not just solar. A lot of places just want to create a solar ordinance and you really need to create an alternative energies ordinance.
So we're going to wait until the new board, until next budget time.
Well, one thing that you guys can have me do is reach out to the U of M people and make sure that they're still on board to do this whenever we budget for it.
And I wonder if it would be helpful. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, please.
And yeah,
I wonder if it would be helpful to sort of review what they sent. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because we don't want to, but just, I wonder if it's easier than we think. Probably
who
not.
knows?
Things usually,
Yeah.
but it's possible, you know, if you took a look at it.
I have been
yeah,
doing
it's a
this for
little fleshed
25
out.
years. So yeah, usually it's not what you get from somebody that's doing something for free is not 100% great. There's a lot of things that they don't look at when they're creating an ordinance. They're basically taking a template and just saying, add this in as section 3,450, which is just your last section in your ordinance book. And you're like, all right, here you go. But yes, I mean, again, a dark skies ordinance for us, I don't think is that difficult, but it is, you know, you gotta go through the steps that the state mandates for zoning text amendments. Notices, notice of adoptions, ordinance language, all of those things, so. Public hearings.
So you said a minute ago that what we could do was direct you to get in touch with the University of Michigan people about the dark
Yep.
skies. Would you like to make that motion? Will I?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to move that Scott Pachenko contact the student/faculty members at the University of Michigan, possibly Steve Wright, who was the presenter here, who's also from the University of Michigan, to be able to review the changes that they made to our current lighting ordinance.
I'll support that. Any discussion? More than we've already had? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Great, thank you. That feels good to have something on that, some sort of movement instead of leaving it. So appreciate that. Thank you, Scott. All right. Is there anything else we need from Scott before we're moving on? I don't think so. All right. Then next on our item is kind of two things that go together. So this L4029, Kathy Skull and board, I'm gonna give you guys. Kathy had created both of these and I missed them and didn't get them into the board packet, but she went ahead and prepared one of them with here, this will be for Sandy, this will be for you. This is the L4029 where we report the taxes that we're committing for the fall. So we always have on here our operating millage, which is 0.9329. And then, and traditionally has included the 4.4 mils for the debt. So we have these two items sort of in conjunction. Kathy's here in case anybody has questions. This L4029 absolutely must be to the county by the end of September. Correct? It says on there. So, and our attorney Skull has said if we decide to cease collecting the 4.4, then we simply wouldn't report it on this document. So then taking a step back, so this is a discussion of whether or not the board has interest in making sure that we're removing the 4.4 mils from the tax bill. So in my mind, we've been working on this for the past few months. In my mind, I've been wanting to know from the county what we owe on the debt, and then from our auditors, the monies we have on hand. Because this is the information I think the board's gonna wanna know. What do we owe? And here's the money we have on hand. Do we feel confident that we could pay them, not have emptied our pockets out to do so and to still have some money in case of things coming up. We're aware there's gonna probably be some expenses with the water tower down the road with painting or cleaning or other things that have been mentioned. So we certainly don't want to exhaust all of our funds. So this is the information I've been trying to gather. I sent to the board Mr. Sweeney, and in the board packet is an email from Mr. Sweeney in the financial department at the county. And there's a lot of information, but in bold at the bottom, he's put down that this is what we owe, which was $1,440,000, 568 and change. There's 2 debt payments left. They've been around $1 million each, but I think we got out ahead of our payments because we made the tap fee payments from the manufactured homes. That was about $1 million. So that helped us kind of get ahead of those payments. So that's the money we have owing to the county, per the county. And then Rod has provided our Michigan class printout, which is our investments. And Rod, I think, are all of the monies in this investment available, or are they, okay? I was also hoping that our auditor was going to be here tonight, because he could speak to the monies we have on hand. He doesn't have the audit finished yet, and it's probably, I I asked him if he'd come to our September meeting and he has a conflict on the 3rd. So board, we may have to call a special meeting in September to acknowledge the audit when it's done. So that's kind of where we are right now. This is the monies that we owe. This is from Rod. I was hoping we'd have some more information from Kimberly. So the board just will need to make a decision. And I think, yeah. I mean, technically, the L4029 is not due until the end of September. I know Catherine would be we would be much happier to get it in sooner. We don't like to leave it. But also we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable. Everybody, this is a lot of money. So I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable. I guess what I'm saying is if people weren't so comfortable tonight, it would be possible to, postpone the decision for more information if people wanted. But September would absolutely be the date that we would have to make a decision by.
I think we pretty well got everything in front of us. And we have enough money in there, if we left it in there and it continues to draw interest, pay those off as the last 2 notes come due.
So Rod, right here where you have Michigan class, there's $3,693,428.
Yes.
So that is completely separate than the cash summary that you provided in.
Yes.
So we have an additional $3,774,426. That is, broken down between the general fund. Look at the special sewer, and again, I mean, I want to dive into this eventually. But I need to understand where all this is from.
But I truly believe we are fine to drop that 4-4 and pay the last 2 payments out of Michigan class funds as they come due. And still have a lot of money left over there. You still have 2.2 plus whatever it gains. No.
So the county would actually send us a bill and say, this is what you owe on such and such date, and then we can send them a check.
Yeah, it'd probably be the equivalent to the 4.4 mils on all the
Right,
property.
well,
township.
because when I see that it says that we're ahead by 576,000, that to me says we handed them over $500,000 that we're no longer getting interest on that we didn't need to.
Right.
So are they sending us a bill and then we have 7 days to pay it? Or are we kind of anticipating what the dollar amount may be and we send them a check? Or
They've never sent us a bill because what they get was what gets paid from the 4.4.
so could they give us like a schedule of payments and a date?
It's got
Here's how
two-
much you owe on this date, and here's how much you owe on this date.
I would assume, I mean, they've done that here now.
But my sense is, the reason that we are ahead now is because we paid the $1 million from Sylvan Cross
Right.
tap fees in addition to the monies we collected for the
Right, but
village. So that put us
We don't,
over.
tap fees have to go towards the bond. They
Right.
don't have to go immediately towards the bond. If we hang on to $500,000 and we continue, to meet the requirements of the bond
Mm,
schedule,
right.
then we're still meeting the intent of the law and we're
Well,
getting the interest.
I remember Mr. Pfeffer saying to me, you guys need to hurry up and make those payments, because now that we know that we're legally obligated to pay those tap fees to it, that we needed to do so. And if we delayed, it sounded like it was, my understanding from them was, once the attorney, once Mr. Axe agreed, those tap fees need to go, those tap fees needed to go. My understanding was immediately.
Did we, but I don't
And
think the
so-
board ever had that discussion with Mr. Pfeffer, because I don't recall.
I don't recall either. I mean, I don't know, maybe, I don't remember he was here. I don't know.
As long as it's eventually going towards the bond and we're not accruing any interest on the county's, any penalty advances on the county's part. Why
Mhm.
would we Why would we hand them $500,000
Mhm.
and not continue to get interest on it?
My understanding
which
was
is-
that,
Which is my point of us making the last two payments on our own and continuing to collect the interest from
right,
Michigan Place.
right.
So that tells me the county owes us a payment schedule. Here's what you gotta pay, and here's the date it has to be paid by.
Yeah, and I feel like it's here, but if you want it in an Excel sheet, the way we're used to getting it, we can do that. Like
It
these
is,
are what's
is it
left.
twice a year that we have to make payments to them?
It's
Once,
only
well, it's once a year total. It goes on the winter bill.
Right.
So we collect from December 1st to February.
Right, but
14th.
in their Excel spreadsheet, they're making payments towards the bond. And if any money that isn't
Mhm.
covered, then they're advancing it and charging us interest.
Right. Right.
So it looks to me like they make payments towards the bond twice a year.
They probably do.
They do, yeah.
Principal and interest.
They do. So as
Yeah,
long as
they're the
we
bondholders, but yeah.
get them the money a week before the payments due, we should be good.
And at this point, with the
But,
money that you've paid, we've paid off the advance?
I think it's included here in his information. But, you know, if we want to have a conversation with Mr. Sweeney, he's happy to have that conversation. You know, when I sent it around, I asked, they may have questions. I think you had questions about Taffy that were more for Kimberly, but if people have questions for Mr. Sweeney and Tina Gavalier, who is also usually present on those, they were happy to do so. You know,
Well, I think the bottom line is we have the money,
Right.
we have the motion in front of us. We can vote on it. I'm just saying that if we approve to go ahead and not on the 4029, not have the 4.4 mils in there, let's just make sure that we understand how we're gonna pay that money
Right,
back
right,
to the county.
right,
So that we're not handing them
right.
$500,000 that we're not getting interest on.
And I will get information maybe from Mr. Pfeffer to just confirm that that was a wise move for us, a legally necessary move to start, because other tap fees are gonna be coming back. If we can get Mr. Trupiano to pay his 170, do we need to send it right away, or can we sit on it? So but I think, yeah, right.
So I'll make the motion, or Kathleen, do you want to do it? I mean,
No,
you've got it in writing
Um,
on the agenda item.
I'll have to I don't even know where my agenda item ended up.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, and it's yeah, that was Rod's motion, I think, so. And I think we should reference specifically the L 4029 to say if you're gonna make a motion to say that we're not going to assess it. All right, I'll make a motion that that the board submit the L 4029 tax rate request without the 4.4 mil bond payment from the taxpayers winter 2024 tax bill and all bills going forward.
I'll second.
All right. And the other thing I meant to mention, I kind of got lost, Kurt, but to that is, and Sandy, once the bond is paid off, then there's some other things that happen with the Grass Lake Interceptor. I'm looking at Bob real quick. Is that, yes. So once the bond is paid off, we're gonna have to look at that interceptor agreement, because I think there's some other things where that perhaps gets turned over to the township, but doing this won't do that, but it will be in about a year and a half. You folks who are possibly on the board will just need to be cognizant that when that last payment is, and then there's something that happens with that. All right, so motion from me, supported by Rod. Should we just do a voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say nay. All right,
Thank you.
we've done it.
That was easy.
Yeah. Yes,
It was hard getting there.
it was hard getting there, and thank you. I'm sure, Catherine, do you have anything you want to say about yes, I know you're very detail oriented and you don't like to be running up against deadlines, so. So the next item on the agenda is, I'll just, it's sort of an acknowledgement, in the past, so what I'm gonna say then is, I'm gonna make a motion that the board acknowledge the L 4029 2024 tax rate request with the operations millage only.
I'll second that.
And this is just so that we've all looked at it and we all understand the board understands this is the tax that will be put on the bills. Okay, motion from me, support by Rod. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I oppose, say nay. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. So now we've approved that change and acknowledged the L 4029. And now the supervisor and the clerk sign this, is that correct? Okay. Will you be here tomorrow, Amanda? Okay, perfect. Well, we'll sign it and get it to you so that you can get that submitted for us. Wonderful. Okay, next up, some tree trimming at Maple Grove Cemetery that I believe our cemetery sexton had suggested. All right.
Place up there has always been a problem with dead branches
Yeah.
all over that
And
thing.
I mean, Larry there, he's so detailed about maintaining the cemetery. So I know we did not budget for this $850, but I mean, I would prefer to take his guidance. If these branches are in the way, you know, we can pull that out of the
Yep.
general maintenance.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we've paid for any tree maintenance at the cemetery ever in years, so,
We have money in there that went from plot sales also.
oh, okay.
So that's
True,
cemetery.
he has definitely collected enough in
Mhm.
sales.
Okay, perfect, good, yeah, because they're 800 each, or if you're getting or
Yep.
400, you know, yeah. Okay,
$1,600.
okay,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, you know, and so this is, the supervisor has authorization up to $1,000 to approve things, and I know Susan said, well, why don't you just approve it? And I was like, I don't want to approve $1,000 things, and now it's blowing up the budget, so I felt it was appropriate that the board vote on this and be aware that this will be an expenditure, but I'm,
All right, I will move to hire Berman's Tree Service to trim, remove branches at Maple Grove Cemetery in the amount of $850, authorizing Kathleen Kennedy to sign the estimate and contract as necessary.
I'll second that for you.
any discussion?
He's got a couple quotes in there.
Yeah, there was two.
Yeah, it doesn't look like,
The other was quite a bit more.
Right.
Well, 50% more.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, net zero, they wanted,
it's hard to see that they
1,000.
both have the same scope of work, but I guess we trust
Yeah.
Larry. that he's-
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Yeah, the other one that's more expensive looks like it has more trees on it. But yeah, like you said also, I think we trust
Yeah.
Larry's guidance on that. All right, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. Next item is new IT company.
Well, as you all know, we've had a lot of trouble out of VC3 getting them to return calls, take care of things. Anybody in the office that's in this room, I think will agree to that. So Brandon and I actually spent some time with three companies, talking to them about the needs, showing them what they needed to do, what we had now and what they needed to do. And there's three quotes in front of you that spells out what they initially want to do and what it will be monthly. And I actually sent out a spreadsheet to you all with the numbers on it so that you can maybe help decipher that.
My only concern, looking through these, the question that we never had answered, do they cover FOIAs? Because right now VC3 covers FOIAs, and I can tell you, because they send me bills that we don't have to pay, it's thousands of dollars.
One of them said that it helps in doing FOIAs, and I don't remember which company that is.
Right.
It
It makes me a little nervous to transition during an election coming up. That makes me a little nervous too, but I know I know it's important. You and I, worked on this.
Yeah.
I would lean towards Lions Technology because I've had experience with them through the Chelsea Area Construction Agency. They do a pretty good job there.
They do. I mean, I liked them my personal was either one of Computer Ties or Lions, either one is perfectly fine,
Well,
but
in Computer Ties, unless I had a moment to breathe after the election, I don't see a contract. Is there a contract?
yeah, they had it.
What did I miss? Oh, I
Um,
do see it. I do see it.
Because I was gonna say, I tried to make sure
do
that
see it.
all of that was in there.
I went through this quickly today.
Okay, perfect. One of them, Computer Ties was going with a little bit more cost when they came in the door. But they're fairly equal. I think the difference, if I'm remembering right, is Lions wasn't gonna replace the server, I think.
I'm not remembered. I did not meet with Computer Ties. What was the reason for Computer Ties proposing that?
Proposing,
Replace the server?
to start anew with everything from them. That's all. I mean, the server's still fine as far as I know and I'm concerned. I mean, we replaced it when IT Right took over. It's been 6 years probably, something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking more like 4, but maybe, yeah, 4 or
Some
5.
4 or 5.
So, if you're gonna have all new stuff, I mean, it would be, I can see how they would want to do that because you want to make sure everything is the same generation. Trying to get something over to link.
Actually, Computer Ties weren't the one we're gonna replace the server, I see here. Yeah, neither one was gonna replace the server, so I misstated that.
So with Computer Ties, they have 2 estimates for hardware. One is significantly higher with the 3,347 and 49 cents.
Yeah, that's taking care of everything that they think needs replacement. And I'm perfectly fine, like I said, with Lions too. I don't have a problem with either one of those companies. I was impressed with both. Just as I'm sure you were also.
I would like to get that question answered though about the FOIAs because BC3 has also told me that they are charging most of their customers for FOIAs, but we maybe have are grandfathered in some way because we've been with them longer. So it makes me think that a lot of these IT companies are now charging. So I would like to get that answered.
Get that answered. Sure. Okay.
I'm looking at the estimates. I probably should just look at the words, because why, there's like 4 estimates that say Computer Ties.
Right, and it's all different
Levels.
All
levels
different
of
levels.
equipment that they're gonna replace.
And then the top one's manage monthly service agreement. So the first
That's-
2 is.
Right.
It's for service. One's 550, one's 850.
Let's see here. The monthly for Computer Ties was $850.
But then look
And it
right below
covers
it, It's got a
All of
monthly.
this in here.
Okay. Oh, no,
Then-
but it's monthly, but right below it, then there's another one.
But that includes the core services mentioned above, plus these. So you would be paying $1,400 a month, right? If I'm reading this right, if you went with both of what they're proposing. Was the 850 for this comprehensive, and then the other estimate priced at 550 total monthly includes the core services mentioned above, plus these additional services. If I'm reading that correctly.
I guess I would have to ask them. I think that was it, but I
Yeah.
could very well be wrong.
This nice sheet here with the different estimates.
Mhm. Okay, so
Feel better if we could just get some questions answered. I mean, you did a lot of work and I appreciate it. I know it's taken time to meet with them and
Well, it's a big move,
It's a
you
lot.
know, we.
It's a big
we
move.
need
Sure
to-
it is.
it's a big move.
It
It
is.
does make me nervous thinking of it.
I mean, they do townships, as you well know. I don't see where there'd be, just me anyways. I'm very comfortable with both of those companies. I mean, they really knew what they were talking about. I'll get those, answered, the FOIA and the one from Computer Ties.
Yeah, just what that means, the
Yep.
additional fees that they were proposing for the monthly services.
And you say the construction agency is using Alliance?
Yep.
Yeah.
How long
I've
have-
met with them.
Okay.
Just over a year,
Oh,
but I've had
okay.
a chance to meet with them as well on issues we were dealing with for the construction agency and they were great.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
They were both, hands down, they really had it all over IT. Both of those companies did. IT now, I don't feel is a township.
Mm.
IT.
Yeah.
So do you know? So do you know some of the other townships that they work with?
That's what Amanda was just.
Lions Technology, they cover the Chelsea area construction agency.
And a couple of others too. I can't remember who else
You know,
they
so
said.
if You could get like, references.
Mhm.
Great. I mean, having township experience, I think is really.
100%.
That kind of.
I agree. That's why the one I just wasn't comfortable with.
Yeah.
IT now or what? Yeah, IT now.
VC3 is our current,
BC3 is current.
and we have a contract with them.
That can be broken.
We would utilize the termination agreement, provide 90 days. Have we provided 90 days notice?
No, because we haven't done anything here yet. So I mean, we don't want to provide any notice until we're okay with another company. Because then that company is going to have to work with VC3. And both of them have already done that in taken over from them because they've had definitely some customers added. Both companies have because of VC3 to get away from them.
So then you'd be paying two companies for
No.
those 90 days?
Well, I don't know how that would work, actually.
No, I would think that you would have 90 days and then you would break the contract, but they would transition after that 90 days.
I mean, I would think until they officially took over, but I don't know. That's another question to ask. I'll ask that.
So, it seems like as soon as you tell VC3 that you're giving them 90 days notice, that they'd be all over us saying, why? What can we do to fix this? And
Actually, the feedback that I've gotten is that they're not surprised and they're trying to move away from some of the smaller customers, hence the big increases.
okay, good.
Because they don't have the people to handle it. They've gotten extremely large all over the US and it shows.
Okay.
Do we want to make a motion to table that for more information?
I'll move the table till next month.
Heard a second?
Support from Kurt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, say nay. All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next, the contract with Comcast for copper cable internet at the water.
Yes. We cannot monitor the cameras down here. And we can't monitor them until we get a high-speed connection up there, period. The wireless will not do it. So in light of what happens and in light of what's going on in Washington County anyways, there was a gray band right in there between MEC and Comcast. And it was finally determined that it was Comcast that would do the water plant. So initially they came up that it was going to cost us $5,800 to connect it. And then they magically changed their mind that they cover that and they pick it up in the payments. So we need to do it.
So what will, so this point, there will be no cost other than
Right.
probably a connection fee.
Exactly.
Because I mean, Chris Shar said it's already there.
Yep, it's already there.
Mm.
And all we have is the bill, the monthly bill. Yeah.
Okay.
And their response to me was, I said, why cable rather than fiber? And she said, you don't want the cost of fiber. Okay,
I mean, if it still allows us to monitor the cameras, and I know
Yep.
there's gonna be more discussion with, I think Chris Shar spoke with, Matt Ackman, thinking of what his last name is, from American Video.
Yeah.
So that I wanted to make sure they spoke so that they could figure out what would be the best path forward, because we're not the experts.
no, and this is an 800 meg download. So it's as fast as the fiber we have here, a little bit faster, actually.
Right. All right, I will move to approve the Comcast internet agreement for the Sylvan Township water plant and authorize Kathleen Kennedy to sign the contract. Is that what you're saying?
I will second that.
So this service term is for 24 months.
Yep.
So it's gonna be, it's $129, so $130 a month.
No, it's more than
Yeah.
that.
I thought
It's 177.90. Because we have an equipment fee and a static IP fee along with that 130. So the monthly service charge is 177.90.
Oh, I see, and then.
And the connection is 129.95.
And again, Chris Shara said that's normal for a commercial account. It's what will.
Yep.
That seems like so much money.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe
is.
Bob Skolkin's like, how much, I mean, I guess we don't have a choice.
No,
I
And
can't
that-
imagine they
and-
use a whole lot of
No.
internet, but if we don't have a choice, we have a choice.
no.
And when you say commercial, the price goes up. Period. Everywhere.
What about government and nonprofit and?
Good luck.
No, this is not a commercial.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you for that clarification. It seems like a lot, but I guess we gotta do what we gotta do, and it's a little frustrating to know it was Comcast all this time.
I know it.
I mean, honestly.
Very much.
Very
No,
much so.
Comcast had misreported yet again.
Yeah.
They had misreported.
Yeah, and if you look at that coverage map, I mean, I showed Amanda, I think I showed you, I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
yeah,
There's that little sliver, and right there at the end of that sliver that was white is the water plant.
Right. Otherwise,
covered.
MEC would have brought fiber to the water plant
Yeah.
because they would have been unserved.
Right.
And they were going through the grant funding process.
MEC was the first call that was made, and they said, nope, that's Comcast.
okay.
So this says you can get a discount if you enroll in the eco bill, paperless billing? Is that something we would do, or how do we pay this? We send a check every,
I think
Well-
we usually do anyways.
Well, but if it's the same amount every year, we would probably go on auto pay because it's not going to change.
It
So
would
if we
just- we
can
would just-
save money, then we'll do that through accounts payable.
yeah, it says $10
Yes,
discount.
we'll definitely look into that.
Ooh.
RC
Mhm.
monthly. MRC is.
All right, so we have motion and support, is that correct?
By,
Okay.
motion by me, support by Rod.
Excellent. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. Next is the cost for, updating the remedial, 2017 remedial action plan for the landfill. And we got a bill from the city of Chelsea. Every year, we pay the city, it used to be like around, felt like around $1,000, and a couple payments to remediate the landfill. So Chelsea sent this letter, supporting document they sent is the information from Eagle, that they visited, and Chelsea needs to, update their plan. They've outlined the costs here, and then on the chart is a division of, payments per the contribution agreement dated November 16th, 1992. And Chelsea pays 70%, the city pays 70%, Dexter Township 10.5, Sylvan Township 6.75, Linden Township 6.75, and Lima Township 6%. Totaling for 100%. So Sylvan's, the entire cost of redoing it is $113,500. Sylvan's cost per the percentages would be $7,661. So that's a surprise. This, like the last item, are both not budgeted for. I mean, we didn't budget for this.
Right.
And that's,
So, while I'm looking in our budget, we still have for the landfill, $7,379.45. I'm not sure what's been paid. I'd have to go back and look.
had there any, probably one payment.
There was, yeah, so it looks like there was a payment of $1,620.55. So we've made a payment.
But that's like, maybe that's.
Yeah, I just looked at this. I would have to go back and
Yeah,
look.
Let's, yeah. We can look at that.
But when you say not budgeted for, is this in addition to the monies that we already planned?
Correct.
Oh,
Because, I think the monies we pay for every year is sort of, they go out, they test the methane levels or whatever levels, the ground levels.
okay.
And that costs us all a little bit. And like I say, it's around $1,000. But it appears that, per the letter from Eagle to the city of Chelsea, the Michigan Department of Eagle has reviewed the remedial action plan dated 2017 for the Working Road landfill, recent groundwater monitoring data, per and polyfluorinated substances, PFAS, reported for PFAS activities conducted in 2020. So yeah, it's all here. So it looks like through sampling of on-type regulating of wells, further evaluation of contamination, potentially discharging into wetland areas, further assessment of the migration of contaminated beyond property boundaries, an investigation and assessment of the covered thickness and cover material permeabilities, an evaluation of surface water flow on site and surface water runoff from the facility. These are all things that were listed in the Eagle requirements for this updated plan.
All right, I will make a motion to approve costs of $7,661.25 for landfill remediation per the 1992 contribution agreement.
I'll second.
Right. Any discussion? Stomping of our feet?
Do we have a copy of the 1992 agreement?
That's an excellent
do.
question.
In the clerk's office.
Okay.
'Cause, I'm wondering, why is Sylvan Township involved in this?
Well, we must
Yeah.
have contributed, I think, Linden, Lima, who else is on here? Dexter
Dexter
Township.
Township.
It's in there.
So we all probably, but it is interesting that a 1992 document would just, kind of, it's
Right,
in
'cause-
perpetuity, so whatever it becomes up.
Because PFAS is the gift that will keep giving. Next they'll have you pumping out all those wells and treating all that water. And then the costs will really go up. So we really need to make sure Sylvan Township should be liable for this.
You think about, I remember as a kid just backing up and you just push it off the truck into the ground and cover it up. That's what they did back
Yeah.
then.
They're on 1992, I'm just.
This is
All
more
right.
like late sixties. I remember this.
Longer ago. Okay, so a motion from Amanda, support from Rod, any other discussion? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. And I think that's the end of the business of our agenda tonight, unless I'm missing anything. In which case then, we have our final public comment. If you'd like to come up and make a comment, you have 3 minutes. Then we'll have Board of Trustee comments and adjourn. Yes, public comment.
Dave Reinhardt, Sylvan Township. I haven't moved since first time. Quick comment on the IT decisions here. Make sure, I would think it's important and been probably already covered, but with the number of malware things that happens to hospitals and townships, what is this outfit going to do to protect us against?
and they laid that all out.
Okay, excellent. And then secondly, not forgetting about ARPA funds before they disappear. I think that's pretty important, free money. And I doubt it, but if any of that could be used towards updating our ordinances, maybe that's a place to spend some. And Scott, if you've got time, take care of all this. So,
Thank you.
Patrick Ziske, Sylvan Township resident. I'd like to speak to encourage the board to actually take up the dark skies initiative or put it forward to the planning commission and to Scott at the earliest possible time. And the reason why, as we heard tonight, that Scott says he has 18 ordinances that need to be done. It's going to take quite a long time to get those 18 ordinances done, and I believe none of them are in motion right now. So this is an opportunity to get a jump on at least one of them. I don't know what the other 18 are. He mentioned a few examples. Some of them are hot button things that have to be done. So they're going to interrupt us next year no matter what. We probably have to do a good part of those 18 ordinances eventually. So the money is eventually going to have to be budgeted. We should be happy that we have Scott for the time that we have him. It's not clear right now that we have enough time. It's not clear how long Scott will be here, whether he'll be here long enough to get all 18 of these things done. So we should jump on it now. If we have to make a budget amendment, we should. We're going to spend the money eventually anyway, and we have the money. And if we don't update our ordinances, well, some of them may cost us more by being not updated at some point. For example, the one that just passed tonight, it would have cost us more not to do it probably, according to Rob Thal, from what I understand. As far as having the joint meeting, that's definitely a good idea. But in the case of the dark skies ordinance, it seems like almost everybody is in agreement that we have to go forward. It's hard. We hardly need the formality of a joint meeting first. Again, that's having not seen the actual ordinance. And it's a good thing that Scott is connecting to U of M, so we'll see a copy of what they've come up with. I have pretty high confidence in Scott and in the planning commission, though, to come up with something good for the township. And there'll be public hearing in case there are comments or whatever. So anyway, that's my encouragement. Take it while you have the chance. Thank you.
Other public comment? Yes.
Kevin Townsend, Sylvan Township. It seems like the Dark Sky Initiative, which seems like a great idea, would also be very consistent with as we master plan, we keep the township low density. So if you allow high density developments into the township, you're fighting with a dark sky initiative. So those two things seem to go hand in hand, but I think dark sky initiatives are very important for the community we live in. I wanted to talk a little bit, that's not why I came up, but I thought it was important to bring that up. I wanted to talk a little bit about land use quickly. We just got rid of the 4.4 millage. That's great. Very exciting, amazing work. Is it time to consider a new millage? So I'm glad somebody stayed. One of the things we've struggled with over the last 3 years, the recurring theme is how do we transition farmland to whatever it becomes next? Trustee Schultz has brought this up. She's asked that we address this. Is this an opportunity with the funds that we have available, with taking away a 4.4 millage? Is there a smaller millage that we could bring in and present to the residents and say, let's start a land conservancy fund with the excess money we have now, some of it, there's the seed money, with a small millage, there's the sustain money. It seems like this is a perfect time to take action on something we know has been at the top of everyone's pain in our butts for the last 3 years. So let's address it. Let's just not do lip service for the farmers. Let's do something that would actually help them potentially in perpetuity if we have a good fund that gets set up and rolling. I don't know, you guys I may be way behind on this, but you may know about this. There's called a toolkit for conservation millages. I don't know if anyone has seen it. It's put out by the Huron River Watershed Council. And I just printed out the first 5 pages. It's longer. I think it's about 60 pages. It's a toolkit. It's local voter approved millages can provide a stable, dedicated source of funding to implement conservation programs and protect significant natural, scenic, and farmlands, water, wildlife habitats, and recreation areas. This is us. This screams Sylvan Township. So I'll leave this with you guys. it up and download it. Its completeness. But it just seems like this type of action would be a great way. I don't know if we can even do anything by, in the next few months, but it would be a great way for to add on to the reducing the 4.4 millage. Let's continue on and address another problem on the, as our board transitions and the election cycle comes up. It would address so many of the things we've been dealing with over the last several years. So it's a resident win, it's a farmer win, it's a board win. I don't know why we couldn't discuss this further and take some action on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. Are there other public comments? Nope. All right, I'll just mention, Board of Trustee member comment. I'm sorry, I turned my mic off. I'm just gonna mention that I did a quick summary, under the, reports, sort of about the water, treatment plant break-in, a lot of information in there. The perpetrator, he's in jail right now. There's several felonies that he's facing, 3 charges. Breaking and entering, which was a 5-year felony, breaking into a key facility, which is a 10-year felony. And then depending on our costs, malicious destruction of property, it'll either be a 5 or a 10-year felony. I spoke to Mr. Savitt, the prosecutor. He said that's not what he'll probably end up serving, but that's the extent of those crimes. He's a homeless individual. He doesn't have any money. He will certainly seek restitution, but said it's not very likely that Sylvan will recoup any money from this individual to cover any of the things he did over at the treatment plant, which were pretty much spray painting and he turned dials, he stepped on a scale that's very sensitive and now needs to be replaced. So these costs are all just starting to come into us. We submitted something to our insurance company, but it doesn't look like they're gonna cover from their first letter to us. We can push back on that and get our attorney involved and see if they'll cover some of the other things that we needed to. We had to dispose of chemicals that were there because they couldn't be sure that he didn't compromise the chemicals. The people we brought the chemicals from wouldn't take them back because they didn't know what's inside these chemical bins anymore. So now we have to find a third party to come and dispose of these. It's just not, it's a lot. So there's a summary in there, kind of what I just said. The sheriff's department came out and did a security review with us. They said everything looked good. It's just a anomaly of this guy, scaling that fence, breaking the barbed wire and then coming over the fence. And then I know Amanda and Rod have been having a lot of meetings with, getting the security, checked out again. We were over there and getting the security upgraded. So there's going to be, expenses along those lines as well as expenses getting rid of things. So this will all be unfolding. But as I said in the thing, I think the thing that just makes me the happiest or warms my heart is these are the trying times that bring out the best in people a lot of times. So people were here, they were getting water for their neighbors. They were helping, asking how they could help get the word out. Everyone was really understanding. And so we're grateful for that. And it's just another opportunity to show Sylvan residents and how resilient we are and able to come together in a very unusual circumstance.
I'll just say we had a successful August primary. We had 179 total votes cast. And we had 69 early voters, so people were voting early. We had 330 voters on election day. We had 680 absentee voters. We sent out 887 ballots, so that's about 78% return rate. So that's good. It was as Dave said, I think we have really, it's because we have amazing election inspectors. There's a lot of prep work in the clerk's office beforehand, but the day of the election, it's all the election inspectors. And they're all very well trained and just really do an amazing job.
Wonderful. Oh, great.
I just want to mention that in my board packet, I put a resignation letter in there as the alternate to the CAFA. I wanted to ensure that I could stay on CAFA, and I've accepted the spot of alternate at-large member on the CAFA board.
So that means next month we'll have to have an alternate. Okay,
Sorry, Kurt.
perfect.
Well, if there's anybody out there that would like to be an alternate, let Kathleen know.
That's right. Well, and I'm confused about a little bit about the CAFA, like we've said, because I know our policies say that it must be a board member, but then when we look at the CAFA board, I don't think it's the case, so yeah, and I think we've talked about that, sort of like really finding out, are our policies wrong, or, is it the fact that people need to be elected folks to be on there?
Because Linda and
Um,
Lima both have had non-board members
Right.
on
Is-
CAFA.
Yeah,
Now Linda now has a board member on
Okay.
CAFA. That's who took Tom's place.
Makes sense to me because you're dealing with public money.
well, and that's the reason why, is because it's a tax-funded
Right.
thing as opposed to CACA or WAVE or something which is funded. So that's what our policy states, is that for that board and the fire authority specifically, it needs to be an elected person. But I don't know, maybe it's in the bylaws, if we know where the bylaws are. The latest or the greatest.
Right, well, I think you said for Sylvan Township, it's in our,
It's in our policies, but I remember when those policies were crafted by Sandy Crawford in 2013, and I think a lot of that information was kind of like Scott was saying about ordinances. So we've taken things off the internet that I don't know, maybe aren't true, because is Craig Meyer still from?
He's from
Oh,
Lima.
I
He's
see.
from Lima, but he
Yeah.
hasn't been on the board for 4 years.
Oh, I see. I thought.
But
he
he's
was
still on
okay.
CAFA and has,
right, so
However,
the
it's.
CAFA articles don't say you have to be an elected official, but if the
Okay.
municipalities that belong to CAFA, if they have their own policies,
Right. when they were-
and that's what I was saying, is that, we should be talking to the supervisors at the other entities and say,
Yeah.
you guys should have a policy, and they may disagree, but if they say, oh yeah, we do, we just have overlooked it, then
Well, but if the reason is because it's a taxing authority, that would be consistent among wherever you're from. So I would think if Sylvan's under a requirement that sort of supersedes us, that we must have it because it's a taxing authority, it seems to me then it would be applicable to all of the entities, the municipalities that belong to that.
but then on the other
So-
hand, you have the at-large member who is anyone from the community. Can be anyone from the community,
True.
which is why I took on as
Right.
alternate there, because I truly like to be on CAFA and I wanted to ensure my,
Well, there's an
Continue.
answer out there somewhere and
Sure.
we'll figure it out. You're on there now, you're an elected person, so we're not, and there's no worries for us, and just as we're looking for an alternate, just to make sure that we're, doing what we need to do and not putting unnecessary constraints on us that other townships aren't doing.
Right.
So, because it's not always easy to get people to coming out. All right, other board comments?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:44.
and going along, I'll second. I've done them all tonight, so. once I finish off,
You're the big supporter tonight. All right. All in favor, say aye.
I.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carried, meeting adjourned.